All right, today we're going to dig into a really fascinating and maybe a little provocative idea. It's called the peace paradox.
You know, we're all taught the same thing, right? The story we hear from day one is that the ultimate goal, the absolute peak of a great relationship is perfect harmony. Just constant agreement, total comfort, and absolutely no waves.
But what if, and this is a wild thought, what if that ideal of perfect, uninterrupted peace is actually the enemy of desire? It's a completely counterintuitive idea, I know, but it's definitely one worth exploring.
So, to really get into this, let's start by taking a closer look at what we could call the myth of perfect peace.
I mean, just picture what that looks like in real life. A state of just perpetual positivity, a constant, unshakable calm. And maybe the biggest piece of the puzzle, complete predictability. No surprises, no tension. That's the goal we're so often told to chase. Okay, but right here is where things get interesting. This is where we run into a really compelling counter-argument, a concept called the peace paradox. So what exactly is the peace paradox? Well, it's this theory, and it suggests that the very state we're all striving for, that smooth, predictable calm, might actually have an unintended side effect. It could be diminishing our emotional intensity and, yeah, along with it, our desire.
And the idea behind it is pretty bluntly, uninterrupted positivity actually kills desire. Whoa, that's a huge claim, so let's try to unpack why anyone would even think that.
And that brings us to the why behind all this. It's all about what our emotional systems are really looking for, is kind of craving for intensity. And look, it's a totally fair question, right? Why would we react against something that sounds so perfect? Why would our own minds push back against constant peace? Well, the theory goes like this. Deep, real emotional bonding, it isn't just built on the happy stuff. It might actually need the entire range of human emotion to thrive. And that includes feelings we usually try to run away from, like a little bit of anxiety, a sense of longing, and even moments of frustration.
So think of it like this. Imagine our emotional core as a system that just needs stimulation to feel, well, anything. On one side, you have a system that's only getting safety and predictability. Over time, it risks just stagnating. But on the other side, a system that's starved for some kind of emotional variety might actually start generating its own chaos, creating that longing and frustration just to feel alive, just to feel something.
Okay, so that's what's happening inside our own heads. But how does this actually play out between two people in a relationship? And that brings us to this idea of the unsolved puzzle.
And here's the real kicker. The theory suggests that if one person is only providing that predictable peace, the other person's subconscious, that craving for intensity, might actually start to invent its own conflict. It's not like they're choosing to do it. It's just this deep-seated drive for some emotional texture.
And this is where the difference becomes super clear. On one side, you've got the solved puzzle partner, who only offers peace and predictability. They become completely known, and the risk there is that they become, well, uninteresting. But then you've got the surprising partner. This is someone who maintains their own edges, their own separate identity. They can still surprise you. And because of that, they stay intriguing and, according to this whole theory, desirable.
Now hold on, I know what you might be thinking. Is this just an excuse to start fights all the time? And no, that's not the takeaway at all. The idea is way more subtle. It's about building an architecture of desirable discord.
And this is probably the most important part to get right. The goal is not to go out and create chaos, not at all. It's about understanding the power of not being a completely solved puzzle. It's about holding on to that sense of self that can still surprise and engage your partner.
Okay, so let's wrap this all up. What are the big ideas to take away from this? Well, first, desire seems to be linked to the full spectrum of emotion, not just constant positivity. Second, maintaining your own edges can keep the dynamic in a relationship alive. And third, a little bit of surprise might actually be more valuable than constant, predictable peace. At the end of the day, it's about understanding this idea of desirable discord, not destructive fighting, but the emotional texture that really creates intrigue.
And that leaves us with one last big question to chew on. When you think about your relationships, what are you really building for? Are we building exclusively for comfort, or are we also building for desire? Because this whole paradox suggests you might not be able to max out both at the exact same time.